There are certain expenditures which only the government has to incur. What the economists call it a public goods. What is a public goods? It has the characteristics of non-excludability and non-rivalry. The example of a pure public good is the defense of the country. Certainly a private sector cannot get into the defense services because it's not profitable. So the government has to get into the defense. Similarly, government also has to go for various welfare programs for poor, for various other things. If any calamity takes place, it's only the government which has to get into this. If private sector, one can't expect. So, public finance is the study which investigates the public revenue, public expenditures. It deals with fiscal policy. It also deals with financial administrations like budgets and others, and also deals with public debts, because there always be a difference between the public revenue and public expenditures. So, public finance is extremely important for public administrators. If you are in public service, that we have to know about public finance. Generally, the union budget, whenever it's presented, the union budget like this is a central budget, some people call it. We are very curious that there are some number of indicators of this union budgets, and these indicators, the most important of this is fiscal deficit, whether fiscal deficit is going up, if it is going down, what are these fiscal deficit targets there, the revenue deficit, the primary deficits, what are the government revenues. So there are a number of documents that the Union Finance Minister presents. The Union budget, the budget speech that we all hear whenever she presented there in the Parliament, we hear it from the through the televisions or various other channels. As you can see, this budget at a glance, there are of course number of other documents like revenue receipts or the receipt budget, expenditure profile, or fiscal documents, a number of documents that is you can find there in the budget. But I can just show it to you the budget at a glance. This budget at a glance, how the revenue deficit is calculated is very clearly shown. Revenue deficit is a difference between the revenue receipt and revenue expenditures. What is revenue receipt? Revenue receipt is a day-to-day income of the government. It includes tax revenue and non-tax revenue. Tax revenue, as you know, the money that is being collected from various taxes like income tax, central GST, custom duty, corporate income tax and the like. So the tax revenue and non-tax revenue. Non-tax revenue includes the user charges. It also includes the money that you get it from the public sector undertakings as their profits and all. So both tax and non-tax revenue becomes the receipt of the government or the revenue receipts of the government. The revenue expenditure of the government. What is revenue expenditure? Revenue expenditure is again a day-to-day expenditure of the government, which means the money that the government has to pay for the salaries and the money the government has to pay for the operational maintenance of the government assets. So the difference between the revenue receipt and revenue expenditure is the revenue deficit. There could also be revenue surplus. So that's one about the revenue deficit. Then comes fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is the difference between the total receipt and total expenditures. What is total receipts? Total receipts also includes your borrowings and other liabilities and the recovery of loans. So the difference between the total expenditure minus total receipts minus borrowings, that shows the fiscal deficit. Or in other words, fiscal deficit shows the borrowing requirements of the government. That's a very, very important thing. So generally the rating agencies outside India or within India, they see one indicator called fiscal deficit and try and rate the country's public finances. The last part of the deficit we call the primary deficit. Primary deficit is nothing but a fiscal deficit minus the interest payments. So the interest payment that the government has made during that year, that has been subtracted from the fiscal deficit, that shows the primary deficit. Let me show you the other documents of the budget. We have shown it to you the revenue receipts contains how much money the government has earned during the year. The expenditure profile, very clear from the title itself. It shows the key of all the budget documents that is there in the packs. The expenditure budgets is quite a thick document. It shows the expenditure of all the union ministries, whatever money they have demanded from the government of India. So that money that has been allocated, that shows here in the expenditure budget. So that's another document. The statement of fiscal policies as required in the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. So this is the requirement of the FRBM Act that is also being laid in the House of Parliament. Then the implementation of budget announcements, okay, that's another document. The finance bill is a legal document that is the statutory requirements of the Government of India to places in both House of Parliament. The memorandum explaining the provisions of the finance bill, that's another document. Implementations of budget announcements, that's another document. Annual financial statement, outcome budget, that's also there. It has been introduced few years ago. And the last, demand for grants. Generally, union ministries, they ask for grants or the state government asks for grants. So this document shows what are these demand for grants. So there are number of documents of the budget. Similarly, the state budgets also has number of documents there. These are there on the website, but we have to study this if you have to study the public finances or the various aspects of public finance.